to another episode of Brigadoon Radio. Brigadoon Radio, where we talk about emerging issues, independent thinkers, shaping commerce and culture. Back with us from the Queen City, Chad Munitz. Chad, how you doing?
I'm doing great. It's I think this is the first sunny, warm day since I've joined the Brigadoon Radio show in the Queen City.
Well, that's good because winter's not far away. It's the end of April, so you're only 4 or 5 months away from winter again, yes. Which is perfect. Yeah, it's been a cold spring. It's only going to be in mid-70s today, but yeah, it's been a cold spring. My flowers are just starting to bloom. We have a cherry tree that produces actual cherries, so it just popped. So it's nice.
You turn those into maraschino?
We do maraschino. We make jelly, jam. They're quite good. I know my new thing now. I know to pick them when the birds start eating them, and that's how I determine that's when they're ripe. But it produces a lot of cherries, actually.
That's cool. Yeah, Michelle likes homemade maraschino. Buys cherries, pits them.
I'm pro cherry. I like cherries, and pretty much any format. So, anyways, now that we've lost our 7 viewers, let's get on to the more interesting stuff.
Generous on 7.
It's got to be at least 15. All right, here we go with bots, including bots. Let's talk about sports TV. Our favorite event is happening this Thursday. Chad, what's our favorite event of all time? Our favorite television show? The NFL Draft.
NFL Draft. Detroit.
Absolutely fantastic. Well, Detroit's not going to be until 2024.
Yeah, they're on the clock.
Which I want to talk about. Let's focus on Las Vegas, who lost, I guess, the draft during COVID, and they shifted it. This event, I absolutely love the NFL Draft. I don't know what – I actually watched more of the NFL Draft than I probably do of NFL football throughout the regular season. I don't know what it is, but it is 600,000 people show up live. It's days and days of television, multiple networks. What's the secret behind the NFL Draft?
It's because it's America's sport. It's the build-up for the greatest sporting events, of the year.
And it's also the hope and dreams, right? You get these young kids, these young guys, prime in their athletic careers, getting picked to sign to make millions of dollars. I mean, it is something all-American, isn't it?
It's all-American. It's, one pick can turn around a team. There's just rabid fandom.
Except for Cleveland and Detroit.
A long storied history.
No, I guess, one pick supposedly could turn around a team. As a long-suffering Lions fan, I've yet to see that prove out. But also, to me, it's also the fans, right? It's like, I love the cutaway shots, when the GM, the smarty pants, the executives probably pick the best player that's needed for that team, but he's not flashy. And the fans react. They cry, they scream, they yell. It's absolutely fantastic. That's probably my favorite part.
Yeah, it was, 20 years ago when it was still always in New York, and basically all the rounds were in one day, of just seeing the Jets fans boo, constantly boo fantastic. The pick, which is great.
I saw the other day, the Jets picked a tight end over Warren Sapp. Warren Sapp ended up going to Tampa Bay. Warren Sapp, obviously, all-pro career, Super Bowl. I have no idea who this tight end is from the Jets, right? We know who Warren Sapp is. And that's the juxtaposition, right? All this studying, all this research, all these analytics. And at the end of the day, who the hell knows if these kids are going to pan out?
They're now most of them are 20, 21.
Yeah.
They're still developing. The shift in competition, I don't know the exact stats of, how many players play Division I and then the number of folks that are actually in the NFL. It's just the level up of competition is just so immense.
I looked at, I think around for baseball and soccer, there's like 200, around 200 teams that play D1, right? So I don't know, maybe there's probably less than football. I'd say it's, 180. But even if it's 200, you're only talking a few thousand kids. And out of that, only 100 get picked to go to the NFL. It's pretty wild.
It is wild. I actually think, it'll be great with all the COVID restrictions and more players there. It's been really fun the last couple of years when the players are all at home with their family, get that call.
You like that, eh? The family
I do like
touch,
that.
Being surrounded, some modest Midwestern home getting picked to go to the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yeah.
But it is a show. Yeah, I mean, the professionals are now, these kids, basically when they finish the football season in the fall, they basically drop out of school and they train full-time. The amount of on and off-field activities that get ready for these kids to get drafted is immense.
And from an early age, even there's friends here in town that have kids in high school that they're already getting media training in high school in terms of how to talk to the press,
For real.
how to handle social media, mostly social media, the do's and don'ts of things on social media. And while, when we were growing up, the worst thing you could do is say something stupid that ended up in the paper and the opposing team had that stuck all up in the locker room.
Oh,
It's just much
the locker board. What do they call it?
Yeah.
Locker room talk or what was it?
Bulletin board.
Bulletin board. Yeah, there we go.
To motivate them, now there's all kinds of things you can step into that you probably shouldn't say.
Well, somebody who provides communication advisory. I like the idea of more media training early and often. I don't know. Maybe I should shift my business to high school athletes. I hadn't thought about that. I think too, like getting back to, I want to talk about two things. The impact on the city. I mean, obviously you've done a lot of economic development at the state, national, and local level. These kind of big, I don't know, I'd come like a tentpole event. It seems to draw a lot of attention. Detroit isn't hosting the draft until 2024. I guess Kansas City has it next year in 23. But the city of Detroit already has a countdown clock in downtown. They're already rolling out the red carpet, if you will. They're making it like a marquee event, the ability to show off Detroit. Smart, I guess, right? Or I don't know, something to rally around. Or
I think it's very smart for a couple of reasons. It's something to rally around the national and global publicity that the city gets. It's we talked a lot about this whole entertainment, but just having people wanting to travel to understand things. The Guy Fieri of I've got my whole list of places to stop when I drive across the country just draws people there. But I also think from a local level, being able to organize and bring the community together to produce one of these helps immensely to get other things accomplished in the community. It's hard to bring those many people together, that many resources together to actually produce the event. I think in the long term, it just helps the community be prepared to do other large projects.
Oh, I like that. So it's almost a training ground. And I guess for the NFL now, you got three or four marquee events now, right? You got the NFL draft, you got kickoff weekend, you got the playoffs, you got the Super Bowl, and once again, the NFL finding more ways to dominate our mind space.
It is an amazing juggernaut. It's just it is suited so well for TV, for social media, for kind of the instant gratification. None of the other sports break down into that level, I think, where it's so easy to sit down and watch. And the fact that there's just such a finite amount of games.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I think baseball and NHL hockey is trying to do a better job of their draft, but so many of the drafts of those, baseball and hockey in particular, are more speculative, right? Like these kids get drafted, and there's, I don't know, the contract, especially in baseball, I fully don't understand how you get drafted in baseball. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. And then the MLS draft, I'm sure they're doing stuff, but it's not even resonating. But the ability to kind of stretch that season, I think, is probably the big learning here.
Yeah, it's that, and it's creating the market for these players. I mean, the NFL understands that really what drives is the personality of the players on the field. So being able to break that up and introduce the country and the nation and all the fans to those players and those segments. I mean, that just the first night alone, there's, I can't remember, half hour in between each draft choice.
Yeah.
So they get to introduce that player and the family and the background on all those people to this national media and absorb it. They've done an amazing job how they produce that together. It's crazy.
No, they've nailed it. There was a great story this week in the LA Times about how the LA Kings are actually expanding hockey to Mexico, getting more kids in Mexico to play. And it's interesting now that part of being a professional team is also expanding the sport, right? Getting more people in as fans, but also more people in as players. So I think the MLS has done a great job around the academy system. But it seems like it's a prerequisite. Like it's basically now becoming a 24/7, 365 situation where we got to engage fans as well as future players.
Yeah, it's getting those people to drive to the sport and get them to understand how the sport works. And I know one of your favorite pastimes is gaming. So the explosion of Madden has actually driven the sport quite a bit of just sucking people in. I think it's actually helped a lot with other sporting, the FIFA games, the NBA live 2K games, help kids get involved and understand how the game works at an early age and brings them in as fans. And that, again, the NFL is amazing at marketing that, the build up to who's going to be on the cover of Madden, get those star marquee players in there, their moves, their clothes, their looks, and kind of push that through.
So I do a famous, I don't know how famous it is. It's famous to me. I do a mock draft. I've done it for the last few years. Do you know who's going first this year? Do you want me to give you the rundown, or do you know?
No, give me the rundown. I know my Cleveland Browns do not even have a draft choice in the first round. So,
well, they don't need one. I mean, why waste a first round draft pick? Frankly, I mean, it doesn't. It doesn't even matter who the Browns draft. Frankly, all right. So number 1, Jacksonville. Number 2, Detroit. Fantastic. This must be the 87th straight year in a row where Detroit has at least a top 3 pick. The Houston Texans are 3rd. The Jets, the Giants. We go with Carolina, and then I guess the Giants go again. They sneak in there maybe with the Bears. But listen, these are like the same teams every year, right? Jacksonville, Detroit, Houston, New York Giants, New York Jets. I mean, there's a pattern here, right? That's what's so interesting about this draft. It doesn't really seem to matter. Who do you think? Go ahead.
I do. It could matter of just. I don't think this is a great year for quarterbacks, and obviously, it's a quarterback-driven league, can turn a team around very quickly. But, sounds like your guy from Michigan is going to be the number 1 draft choice, anyways. Though
Andrew Hutchinson, I think it would be quite. God, man, for him to go to Jacksonville, what a disaster! Jacksonville, aka the future team of London, England. I don't know. It'd be pretty fantastic for him to end up in Detroit, but I don't know. Maybe that's a curse too.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see. It was interesting to see how this plays out. Anyways, on Thursday, I do a mock draft. It's very funny. It's not at all serious. It's very tongue-in-cheek, and it's one of my favorite activities for the year. So look for that on Thursday. It'll be on all social media and blog platforms. It'll probably go viral, so you won't have to search for it that hard. But these mock drafts are a lot of fun, too. I should have been better prepared to pull this up, but maybe the internet will reward me. I can't find it. All right, here we go. Should we go on to the next topic? Are we done with the NFL?
Yes.
All right, let's talk about your favorite thing, music and NFTs.
What a combination.
So you famously got me involved in vinyl records, which has been a love-hate relationship. What an expensive new hobby you've introduced me to. Oh, my gosh. Go ahead.
Are you aware what today is?
I'm not aware. I mean,
National Record Day.
It is National Record Day. That's like a real thing.
It is a real thing.
Oh, my God. It's like
a lot of exclusive vinyl drops at your local record store today.
Is that true?
Yes.
Actually, there is a record store I follow on the Insta, and I guess they did post something. So once again, we've got marketers meeting up with the man, finding a way to sell a few more items, making a national holiday out of it. Very exciting. So is the next evolution going to be NFTs now, right? I mean, I guess vinyl is the gateway to NFTs. Is that what we're going to see?
Yeah, I think so. Part of it is everything to do to create buzz about your band and your latest album, but also just to drive revenue, to be able to sustain the lifestyle of being a musician as your full-time job. So any way to get that out, and it's just ever changing of what happens out there. I think I shared with you, I listened to a podcast last week with Lex Fridman and Rubin, and just talking about the change. Rubin being one of the greatest producers of our generation,
for sure.
Maybe in the lifetime of music, where he only listens to albums at a time, and that's few and far between anymore. Everything is song driven. What's going out there, you don't have to collect anything as a single album. So finding a way to be able to get out there and be part of it and follow your band, I think it's an important gateway. And your favorite band, the Wu-Tang Clan, probably started this. They had that single album that only one person could buy. Gosh, that was probably a decade ago.
Yeah. I still don't know who the Wu-Tang Clan is, to be totally honest. And then once again, they're pushing the limit. They're going to sell gear in Fortnite, right? They're going to go into the metaverse and start selling gear in Fortnite. It makes sense. Like, I actually collected ticket stubs from famous shows I've seen. So yeah, this is probably the next evolution. Finding different tiers. There's a lot of price architecture in here, a lot of consumer behavior, collectibles. I've yet to buy an NFT at all, but I guess, I don't know, maybe a musician's probably the first thing I would buy if I was to buy an NFT.
Well, I think you're just talking about ticket stubs and collectibles and things, even concert posters you have behind you. It's just changing. I mean, in the next decade, there's not going to be any ticket stubs. Everything will be virtual. I think the NFL actually, talking about leading and marketing, your Super Bowl ticket was actually an NFT that you had. So there were no physical tickets, but you own a lifetime of that NFT to the ticket to the Super Bowl that was on your digital device.
So I've got to pull every time I got to pull it. I'm like, hey, I want to show it off. I got to like pull out my phone and like find it. And oh my God, what a nightmare. You know what's interesting? I read this great piece this week, which was in the Brigadoon Daily. And if you had a chance to read it, just about Spotify and Muzak. And it was written a few years ago. But the author contends that like Spotify is like more keen about getting back to your point about Rick Rubin, listening to an entire album, right? 10 or 12 tracks. Spotify is really trying to push you into moods, right? Where it doesn't even matter who the band is. It's like, what kind of mood are you in? Do you want to exercise? Are you trying to relax? Is it Sunday brunch? Which I hadn't even thought about. I mean, in some ways, it's kind of genius because like then as a user, I don't have to think about it. I'm like, oh yeah, what kind of mood am I in? I answer one or two questions. Boom, there's a curated playlist. But it strips away. It's very algo driven. It's the musicization of kind of records. I was kind of struck by that because I like to think of myself as a devotee, and making my own selections around music. But yeah, there are times I'm like, yeah, I need to listen to music I can study to, chill, whatever. Boom, hit the button, and I'm off. And I don't even know who's on the list.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this next generation, if they continue to go to that, or if they're going to curate their own playlist. The age of the individual mixtape of trying to put that together. Of here's my mood. I stick this tape in. I'm going to do a workout. Here's my workout mixtape. Here's my motivational thing. Here's what I'm sending off to my girlfriend. These are the mixtapes that I put together. And are people still going to think of that way and curate them themselves, or just let the algorithms do it for them?
Well, even because I think we both talked about this. So I use YouTube Music. I think you use Apple Music, and we've created our own playlist. And I've tagged certain music, and there could be like a few hundred songs on there, but the algo routinely sends me the same same songs. It doesn't seem to go through the entire list. Which then I'm also like, is it because these songs are cheaper? Why am I being delivered this song over there? I'm like getting very conspiratorial with my algo, but. What's going on with that?
I would assume it is actually. I guess I'm pessimistic that it's a true algorithm. That there's the old school, over the airwaves radio payola involved in it. It's either folks paying to get their songs pushed to it, or it's the cheaper version to pay out the royalties to get that push.
The curating of a soundtrack, that was pretty interesting. I mean, back in the day, you and me used to like share CDs and put together stuff. And I don't know, maybe that should come back. I don't know. There probably is a market out there for it.
I think there is. I think it's just how you get it out there and share. I think eventually all these, as we've talked about, the services are going to mix together, so you'll be able to mix and match things. It's hard for me to create a playlist on Apple Music and send it to you as a YouTube Music user and figure out how that bridges the gap.
Yeah, it's weird too because I don't use Spotify, but it's funny when you get like a link to like a Spotify list, and some of it could even be publicly available because it's by URL. I don't know. Like when you're like used to your own little system, it's kind of the way to go. I was a huge fan of Pandora back in the day too. I thought what they did was super smart. I don't know. The backstory there is that they were actually using musicians to kind of set up the playlist and the tagging all this different music. So it wasn't a machine that was behind it.
Yeah, it was very personally curated. And I know I mentioned this in the last pod, my loyal listener that threw this out, but I've really been enjoying that WFMU, especially their morning show. It's called Wake and Bake with Clay Pigeon. It's got a great morning show. It's a pretty good mix of music on there.
Well, once again, you tried to exploit me or, send me on a new way, but I keep going back to the same thing. KCRW. On DC, it's hard to break through when you're used to something, but I don't know. I'll try your radio station at least one day this week. I promise. Did Rubin talk about? He did like a 4-hour interview with Lex Fridman, which is absolutely fantastic. Did he talk about NFTs or the metaverse or where this stuff is going? Did they talk about the future of technology, or is it really about him as a producer?
It really is more on him as a producer and putting together an album, how he gets the best out of artists. His philosophy is really, you got to try everything. when you're in there. There's no, which is very similar in kind of business and brainstorming, even in marketing communications, you're putting plans together. There's no idea is a bad idea. He tries not to influence it and let folks go. He also, again, focusing on just curating the album. He says, we usually, when he gets in a studio, he ends up with 25 songs or so that come out of it. And he tries to break it down to, here's the 5 songs that are must-haves. So don't try to create all 12 songs at first. Here's the 5 that are must-haves. And then what are the next songs that complement those 5 as you're curating an album together?
I actually did see that segment, and I thought that was like a really powerful lesson too, right? Because
Yes.
just from a communication kind of marketing standpoint, because curation or deciding or constraining yourself is always a key component of communications. You probably actually have more content than you actually need, but it's deciding like what's the core? What can I not leave without? What's the best stuff? Let's fill it in from there. That was kind of that was an interesting point.
That you have the best, and then maybe number 6 is the 6th best, but it doesn't complement your 5 best. So you want to build everything to complement those things that your strongest suit. It's interesting.
I suppose too, like if you're going to work with Rick Rubin, you got to know the drill going in. Like I'm sure he's very upfront. And he's at a stage in his career. He's got enough power to be like, here's how I operate. Yeah. Take it or leave it.
So I thought it was great too, which, we've both been lucky to meet some people that are pretty influential and high powered in our life. Just this whole fact that everybody's human. They all have flaws and insecurities and then strong points, and getting to sit down with these people and discover that it's amazing how you strip that back and get to who they are as an individual. I talked a lot about getting to work with Paul McCartney, which is probably the greatest ever in terms of songwriters, and being able to see him just as a person who has to struggle through things and figure stuff out and get him to produce his best work.
Yeah, and McCartney, it's interesting. He's still doing it. That's I think what's really interesting. Or even Rick Rubin. I mean, there's no need for. I mean, Rick's proven everything he needs to do, but they're still out there trying to find a new way to deliver music. Yeah, I think that's interesting. I don't know if you saw this quote the other day, but it was attributed to Britney Spears. But she was basically like, "Listen, anybody can make a Radiohead album, but it's really hard to make a pop song," which is kind of the other way. Like Rubin, he wants to find 10 or 12 songs. But Britney's like, listen, it's super hard to have the best song, in 50 countries. So maybe we don't give enough credit to the pop song as well.
Good catchy pop song is pretty hard to beat, and that is hard to get that global reach. And that's what most pop songs do. They don't just become number 1 hits in the United States. It's number 1 hits across most of the developed world. So
I wonder if we should, as a task in the next 4 weeks, force ourselves to buy an NFT from a band that we like. I don't even think about some of my favorite bands. Say the Joy Formidable out of Wales. I don't even know if they are. I mean, do they even offer NFTs right now?
That's our task.
Yeah, then you got to spend. I don't know. We won't cap it. I mean, you're much more fluent than I am, so you can, you can go down the Wu-Tang Clan original album. But no, I think that'll be an interesting project. We can come back and report to our audience to see what we discover. Because even on top of it, I'm not even thinking. It's been such a weird time for bands too. Like they haven't been on the road in years, or probably got some other immediate situations. But there's no doubt.
Yeah, there was an interesting little segment. I'm a big fan of Jack White.
Yep.
And he just actually released an album last week, and I think he's got another one coming out this summer. But he kind of talked about when the pandemic hit, he stopped writing and working on new music because to him, the enjoyment is getting that music out there and then sharing it with the world, going out and touring. And he was worried that if he recorded stuff and got it out there in the world and he wouldn't be able to tour, that by the time it was time to go out and promote the album and tour and share it with everybody in a live setting, his taste would have changed and it wouldn't be fun for him to play that. So he actually got back into what he started his career in is making furniture, he said. So he started working on making furniture for the first year and a half of the pandemic and not writing anything.
Yeah, it's interesting. When this whole thing started, I had this idea about the Taylor Swift index, right? Like when Taylor Swift goes back on tour, then we know COVID's over. And to my knowledge, she hasn't announced the tour yet, and they take a year in planning. So, yeah, we get that's interesting. Like what White had said, the whole process is like with authors too, right? Like it takes a year or two to put together, and by the time it comes out, maybe the world has changed. But very insightful from Jack White, another great Detroiter. Opening day in Detroit, you've probably seen it, but he did the American national anthem. Fantastic. So
one of the best versions.
One of the best versions. Yeah, it was pretty cool. Yeah. The third man thing apparently is a reference to him in furniture making. I don't know. That's the
I heard it when I was listening to this interview and he was talking about it. He was the third guy on the street that went into furniture making. So
that's the story.
3 other houses on his street where the people that lived there were furniture makers.
There we go. All right, let's pivot to another Detroit institution. Autos. I don't know if you read that article from GQ, but they've got this great article. It's called the New Day Motor Club. And they basically turn ugly, undrivable cars into works of art.
Yep.
It's a club where you can go out and get Geo Metros, Kia trucks, Mitsubishi Raiders, these fantastic vehicles, probably from the late 80s, early 90s. And there's a club that reveals the beauty of these kind of old junker cars, pretty cheap to make, easy to maintain. And, when you live in an urban environment, you probably don't really care about. Juxtaposition was the same week. We got all this stuff about, EVs. You got the CEO of Ford on the cover of Bloomberg. I don't know. Auto industry, what a time to be alive. You had a very high-low situation. Even myself, I don't even know if I'll ever buy a car. Will I ever buy an EV car? I don't know. I used to have a Saab back in the day. I got rid of tearfully. I don't know. It's interesting. Should you get an old car or should you get a new car? This is where we are today. What are your thoughts on this?
My guess on the future is, and I think it's sooner rather than later, there will no longer be a ownership component to cars. Really? Most cars will be rented. You'll have timeshares of vehicles and go that way. It's a weird. I mean, it's similar. Being in the housing industry and development, how drastically things have changed over the last 20 years with people wanting to rent more than own, and renting more and more of their life, even both at the beginning of their kind of out on their own of staying in rental apartments longer before they buy a house, and then quicker selling their house and going back into a rental environment on the back end as empty nesters or older people.
But you can't imagine that
you're going to have that with a car too.
You can't imagine not having one car in your house that you got access to 24/7. I mean, just without the medical situation, or I could say it's obviously it's just my wife and I. So we just have one car. We live in DC, so we got access to great public transportation. We're not far from downtown. We can hop in an Uber or a cab or an Alto or whatever. But I don't know. There's something to me reassuring about at least having one car when all hell breaks loose, or if you got to catch an early train, at least you got a way to get to the train station. You're saying we're going to go completely. So there'd be there's just going to be cars like scooters sitting around the neighborhood, and you're just going to pop in and take off.
Pop in and go. You sound like my mother, who doesn't want to get rid of her landline at her house. I need that phone attached to the wall.
I dropped the landline one time.
I think it's a similar analogy, though.
I'll think there's a couple. I mean, I think a car is. I don't know, man. Like the emergency situation, you'd be kids in the house. I don't know. There's a bit of a security blanket, and maybe that'll be enough for the auto industry. But this pivot to EVs is quite dramatic. It gives the auto industry another thing to talk about. It requires less workers, which unions know, to make these cars. And to me, nobody's talking about the mining around all this stuff. I mean, the fact about the minerals we're going to need to make this happen is
the marketing spin that has been put together of how important it is for you to own an electric vehicle is just amazing.
Impressive
how quickly that's been pushed out.
Yeah, it's impressive for sure. And what's interesting to me is why I think we have multiple fuel sources now to power vehicles. You got to think hydrogen is going to play a role in there too. Like we just made a drive the other day. It's like a 6-hour road trip, and I don't know. You couldn't really do that in an EV situation. It would add like another hour to your journey. There isn't really infrastructure yet to go long distances, but you have the hydrogen situation. So I don't know. Maybe you're gonna have more hybrid cars where you're both petrol and EVs, but I don't know. I think families will have at least one car. I can't see a situation where we're gonna drop cars completely. I mean, when are you gonna drop your cars? I mean, you've got like 18 cars in your.
I'm not ready. We have 2 cars.
I know, but you got Right. So you have a fleet. So why don't you get rid of one car?
Can't do it yet because there's not a
Okay.
not a system built around being able to own hours of a timeshare of a car. That'll just
But it's a
show up
classic
when I
chicken and the egg situation, right?
Yes.
Yeah. What was I can't remember the service I was using for a while. What's the local? It's been a few years. Oh my God, I'm getting so old. The local, I was paying like $10 a month. I could access a car whenever I wanted. I don't know, for the day.
Zipcar?
Yeah, Zipcar. Yeah, I mean that's kind of smart. But
Yep.
The challenge, I guess you're right. There was never enough cars closest to me. It was always like there are cars available, but they could be miles away. It wasn't easy enough for me to like walk there, bike there. I don't know. So it's a combination of chicken and the egg.
What's that? And then as soon as the autonomous side of it gets better,
dude, the autonomous is never going to happen, dude. You think like let's think about Cincinnati. You think there's going to be autonomous cars going around the 7 hills of Cincinnati?
Yes.
No way, man. You can't even get good Google Maps in downtown Cincinnati. So how they're going to like set up autonomous
future?
I think it's a bit of a pipe dream, dude. Let's say Minneapolis, dude, in the dead of winter. You think autonomous is going to work in February in Minnesota? I don't think
there's
so.
There's going to be winners and losers.
Yeah, a lot of losers. The autonomous thing, I think if you're driving, from LA to Vegas in the desert and it's perfect weather, yeah, that might work and you're driving in a straight line. I don't know. Urban cores, London. I mean, autonomous cars in London. I don't know, man. Boston. I think that's another pipe dream. I think it's gonna be hard enough for these guys to flip to the EV model, let alone drop all this technology. But I don't know. Maybe Mayor Pete, our famous transportation secretary, Secretary Pete, will sort this out. So I don't know. I'm not as bullish on the autonomous.
Another area we differ. I'm bullish on. I don't think it's going to take a long time. But
what's a long time? Yeah, all right. Give me a time frame.
20 years.
So by 2042.
Yes. The majority of the cars will be autonomous.
51% will be autonomous. All right.
Driven by the insurance companies. They'll say it's safer.
Define autonomy. You're saying like 100% autonomous, like no wheel, like no steering wheel?
The majority of the cars, 51% of the cars in 2042, no steering wheel.
I think I'll take that bet, dude.
All right.
Buy another NFT. That's another thing. I think autonomous may work on the highway system, but like the last mile is going to be a huge challenge. You live in an old city. I mean, I can't see autonomous working in, but you're more bullish. You're about the future. Brigadoon Radio is about the future. Chad Munitz is about the future. All right. Let's finish up with our favorite segment, what we're reading and watching. Do you want to go first?
I think it's been a great 2 weeks for HBO for us. So I've been watching Winning Time, the story of the LA Lakers, which has been fun. Been a fun watch. Sometimes Adam McKay's get a little tough to watch, but
sometimes. So I watched one episode of Winning Time. I was done with it. Adam McKay, I've had enough of Adam McKay. I don't know. Maybe I'm getting old and cranky in my old age, but I don't know. I don't have time for Adam McKay anymore. I'm pro Will Ferrell. I don't know. That sounds great. I watched one episode. I had high hopes for that. I'm actually excited. I think there's a documentary. Somebody's doing a documentary on Magic Johnson. I don't know what platform. Maybe it's Apple. That's the other thing too. I have no idea what this stuff is on anymore. Okay, so you've done the Winning Time. What else you got going on?
That's been, then I've got some nerdum stuff coming up. Get a couple Marvel movies hitting the deck here. So I've been watching a lot of previews, reading some back issue comics to get ready for it. So Doctor Strange is coming out next month in May, and then the new Thor movie trailer just dropped this week. So big things coming out for Disney Marvel.
So you're going to see those in the theater, the whole deal? You're excited?
Whole deal, yeah.
We're getting back to
so I got to watch Batman on HBO too, which is now streamed. Which I think is a great decision by Warner Bros. HBO to 45 days after theatrical release, it goes on their streaming platform.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to miss all of that. So I look forward to those reports. No, we were both talking about speaking about HBO, we both watched the Tony Hawk
Yes.
Until the wheels fall off, which I thought was fantastic. As you know, I'm a huge fan of these kind of cultural sports that kind of punch way above the rate. Surfing, skiing, skateboarding. Like I never skateboarded. I have no idea. I don't know anybody who really does skateboard, but I know skateboarding exists. It's definitely impacted our culture. And Tony Hawk, oh my gosh, this guy's been at the forefront of it, the highs and lows. He's probably made a few $100 million just from that crazy video game alone. Great documentary, really capturing his entire life. And he was very forthright. I thought it was really great.
It was great. It was well done. And it was interesting to see just how the ups and downs of how popular it would get, and then it would just go away, and the lows he hit at the beginning and how it popped up. And really two things, both times were kind of cool to see how it picked back up. The first, I think, was the adoption of VHS tapes and people starting to trade around tapes of skateboarding. Had a second resurgence for, it kind of had this first resurgence and dipped back down. And then when that hit, people were like, oh, have you seen this video? And being able to actually figure out how the tricks work instead of just seeing in magazines. And then once video game quality got to the stage that you could have that feel of actually skating and putting the game out, was that last kind of spark to push it up. So it was cool. The other was just the guy's in his mid 50s and still doing it. It's insane. It hurts me to get out of bed in the morning. I don't know how.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for me the bookends spot on. Like I think his dad getting involved and figuring out a way to organize like competitions, have some kind of guidelines, kind of rules of the road for sporting competition was really important. And then the bookend, just the X Games. Like once again, think about the NFL draft we were talking about. Just this having these massive platforms to get a sport or an activity on TV and broadcasting it to millions of people around the world really is a game changer, right? And then you got the online situation with games. It's, again, end-to-end situation. You got live events, you got television, you got games. It's really a great marketing lesson for where sports and kind of entertainment's going.
And the things that you mentioned of the sports that really you're attracted to also do a great job in tying in the whole lifestyle around that brand and around that sport. So clothing, music, and the actual activity. It's been great. Where other sports have a hard time tying in those other things, a part of your lifestyle.
Yeah, I mean, like skateboarding and surfing, yeah, it would be interesting to check out the numbers. We do a quick search, but it's minuscule. I mean, we're talking a few million people that are actually probably surfers on the planet. But you're right, the clothing, the music, we're all impacted by it. And skateboarding, the same thing, kind of that punk rock, rebel attitude. Yeah, it's fantastic. And I thought they did a great job with the documentary. Two other things I watched. I finished up We Crashed last night on Apple. Jared Leto, amazing performance. What a ride. And, I don't know, maybe WeWork didn't work out or hasn't reached its full potential. Maybe it hasn't come, but everybody knows the name WeWork. What a revolution. You've been in that space too. So what a great story. And just how people get excited about unicorns, man. And sometimes, it's clear thinking goes out the window when you're riding the wave, right? So that was really interesting. And then super pumped, same kind of thing with Uber. Good behind the scenes. I don't know. We're going through a real renaissance of hyperbolic, crazy, aggressive entrepreneurs in the rise and fall and the money made, and good stories, good television.
It is. And, I think at some point in terms of the television, it's got to shrink down. We saw CNN Plus kind of implode already, but the explosion of streaming services and how they're going to deal with that is going to impact things. And all these groups were the unicorns. I mean, even Netflix took a huge blow this week. So figuring out how that works is going to be important to figure out how we continue to get our fix of what we're watching.
Well, winners and losers. Yeah. I mean, you got to place these big bets, especially if you want to introduce, change situation, make big bets. So make someone the other day. If you have a lot of money, you can change anything. I was joking, like, CNN Plus didn't spend enough money. They only spent $300 million. They're spending like close to $9 million to $10 million a day. And they gave up, I don't know. Maybe they should have spent more money. And I also was joking that I'm pretty sure I could have crashed CNN Plus for only $7 million a day. So I could have done it for $200 million, which is equally amazing too. Like, you imagine if that, business is super hard, right? And you've got $300 million and you can't make it work. And you got $100,000 and you're trying to make something work. It just gives you a sense of like, business is freaking hard, man.
It's hard. You got to be lucky. You got to be there at the right time. And investors are fickle, so it'll be interesting how some of this plays out. I mean, the fact that Netflix took such a dive and people are running away from it just because of their subscriber base is interesting.
Well, there's always that thing, which I never fully understood in business school, this whole idea of goodwill on the accounting sheet, where you just can't, you know, the numbers don't fully add up, and the accountants say, oh, it's goodwill, so it's equal to this, and, you know, the value of brand. Getting back to WeWork, I mean, I guess WeWork is in a SPAC situation, and there's a handful of stores. You know, I don't know exactly. Is it still publicly traded? It went private? I don't know. But the WeWork brand has got to be worth, I don't know, $1 billion. Like, everybody knows that name, right? Like, that's got to be worth $1 billion.
I think the brand's worth a lot, and I think long term still, co-working space has a bright future in the real estate market.
Yeah. There's that idea too about the idea of boneyard, or, you know, just because that idea, a good idea, doesn't always work at the time when it's launched, right? Maybe it's just too soon, too early. Who knows? But so, all right, our assignments are to buy an NFT from a band we like, and to buy a WeWork. Is that what we're doing? We're buying WeWork.
That'd be awesome.
And to watch more Adam McKay.
Yeah.
No?
I got to finish out the series, but I don't know.
All right, Chad, Brigadoon Radio.
Been great.
Where we talk about emerging issues, independent thinkers. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Sounds good. Thanks, Mark.
Go Browns.